you support critical race theory?
It's probably 2 or 3 books on them right here behind me. Yeah, matter of fact, there's one right there I'm looking at. There's a few books on them right here.
So you support that?
I guess theory, I don't know what you mean by support it. You'd have to be more specific than that.
Do you believe that the educational system, the American companies, businesses should be teaching people that all white people are racist, and that they're inherently born that way? They can't help that race, white privilege, and all that. Should that be taught about white people in schools and in businesses, in government business and private businesses around the country?
So that we have 2 different appreciations of what critical race theory is. When I hear the term critical race theory, it takes me back to law school, and it takes me back to doctrines that are wholly inconsistent with what you have shared.
But I'm asking you, should that be taught that white people are naturally racist and that they have white privilege? Should that be taught?
I don't think that any person is naturally racist. I fundamentally disagree with that. I fundamentally disagree. I learned a long time ago, you don't answer a question holistically if it's piecemeal together. So you have to forgive me, but you're asking a very provocative question.
The president said that he's not going to allow them to teach that critical race theory in schools and in businesses, government businesses, about white privilege or white systemic racism and all that crap. He's not going to allow that to happen because it's wrong to do that to any race. Do you support that?
So I think fundamentally we live in a society where it's absolutely unconscionable to say that there is no such thing as ethnic privilege or white privilege. That's a historic fact.
What is white privilege?
However, the question as you posed as whites being naturally racist, I fundamentally disagree with that in the most profound way. I don't think there's any such thing as a fundamental racist. Racism is something that is learned. Racism is something that comes about based on experience, not something that I think is immutable.
Should it be taught that there's white privilege?
In order to understand problems, and and I work very much at racial reconciliation in ministry and otherwise. In order to understand problems, you've got to come to the table, and an academic environment is a space where, again, you don't have to agree, but you don't have to be disagreeable because you can't agree on things. But it's an intellectual laboratory. It's the marketplace of ideas. It's a place where you come and you can exchange and grow, even if you differ of opinion, but you grow based on someone else's perspective.
Should it be taught that white privilege exists? Should that be taught?
There very much so is a such thing as white privilege. It has existed forever.
Should that be taught that white privilege exists?
I don't want to answer the question it's not a yes or no thing, because if you're going to teach that, you've got to teach a lot more to go along with unpacking that. Otherwise, it's taken completely out of context and it makes no sense. And I can't just answer a limited question like that. That's not who I am.
So you can't tell me if that should be taught or not.
I think we need to have more dialogue on race. I will absolutely say that.
But how about white privilege? Should that be taught?
Based on what happened in Kenosha, Wisconsin, based on what happened in Louisville, Kentucky, with the grand jury refusing to indict Breonna Taylor's killers, based on what happened in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, with Alton Sterling, based on what happened in Ferguson, Missouri, with Michael Brown, based on what happened in Staten Island, New York,
did that happen
with
because
Eric
of white
Gardner.
privilege?
There obviously are implicit biases. There obviously are fundamental differences in perception. We obviously have got major race disconnects in the United States of America. And if we refuse to talk about them, we will only continue to regress. We will never as a nation progress and make progress.
So you just read off all the names of the thugs and the criminals and people who've been attacked by cops because they disobeyed the cops or whatever.
And you described Breonna, but forgive me, you described Breonna Taylor as a thug, as someone who was in her own home,
with a drug dealer,
not on the street, not doing anything thug-like, as you call it, in her own home,
with
and
a drug
someone comes in with a no-knock warrant and kills her in her own home.
It was a no-knock.
But you describe her as a thug.
No-knock.
You describe her as a
no-knock.
thug, and she's in her own home.
You're being dishonest.
Michael Brown as a thug.
But you're being
You
dishonest.
described Alton Sterling as a thug.
Hey, as
you
a
described
reverend,
Jason Blake in Kenosha, Wisconsin, a brother who was with his young children, taking one of them to a birthday
and he was
party,
wanted for
trying to get in his car
he was
as a
wanted for the
thug.
abuse of a woman. But let me ask, Brianna was in the house
Let
with a
me
drug
ask, how
addict
could you
person.
possibly, in good conscience, holistically describe that class of individuals that I named? How could you, in good conscience, describe them as thugs?
Because
These
I
are
love
people
what's right
who
and
were
I know the
expressing
truth.
their First Amendment rights, freedom of assembly. Not even Breonna Taylor; she was in her own apartment,
But
in
you're
her
not being
personal
honest when you
dwelling.
said it
But
was
these
the
are
no
people who
knock.
were expressing
Hey,
their own fundamental rights to assemble in different places,
but you're
and
not
they
being
were
honest.
killed for no justifiable
That's
reason.
not true.
We have fundamental differences of opinion,
But
sir.
you're not being
And it's
honest.
America,
It
and we
wasn't a no
can have
knock.
fundamental differences of opinion. But again, we don't have to agree and we don't have to be disagreeable.
It
But we
wasn't.
have some baseline fundamental differences of opinion.
But you're not being honest. That was not a
I
no
am being
knock warrant.
completely honest.
No,
I'm being anything.
it
I'm being
was not a
absolutely
no
honest.
knock warrant.
She was killed in her home after the warrant was executed.
With a drug addict person.
After the warrant was executed,
But it
she
was
was
not a
shot
no knock warrant.
many times.
It was not a no
In
knock
her
warrant.
own home.
Let me ask you
And
this.
I described her living accommodation or her living situation
Let me
in
ask you
response
this.
to you calling her a thug,
Do you believe in
which
liberation?
I believe is unconscionable.
Do you believe all these people that you people are protected are no good people,
Who are
but you're
you
leaving
people?
that out?
Tell me, who are you people?
You
I've
black
heard that
people
term
who are
before, but I'm not sure what it means.
you
You
black
said
people
all
who
you
are
people
mentioning
protected.
about the so-called abusive cop, but you're not saying that these people that are being hurt or affected by cops are no good people. They're criminals, they're thugs, they're living in with drug addicts or all that. You're leaving all that part out to give the false impression that the white cops just have nothing else to do but to go out and kill a black. And that's not fair. It's not
And a
right.
white
And
cop
as a
had nothing else
minister,
to do
you should
besides
be,
keeping his
as a
knee on the neck
minister,
of
you
George
should,
Floyd for 8 minutes and 46
George,
seconds.
he was on drugs.
Nothing else to do
He was on
besides that
drugs.
is not restraint.
He
That's
was
not
as
reasonable
high as a
restraint.
kite.
That's 8 minutes and 46 seconds
He
to
wanted to
kill
be,
someone.
no, he wanted to
That is
get,
not reasonable. It's
hey,
not conscionable. It's outright unright. It's outright
you're not being
unjust.
honest.
That cop is
You're
the
not
thug.
being honest.
That cop who killed
No,
George Floyd
that's
is the
not true.
thug.
That's not true. But let me move on. Do you believe in black liberation theology?
Yes, sir.
You do. Do you love white people?
I love all people
How about
until I
white
have a
people?
reason not to.
Do you love white people?
I love all people until I have a reason not to.
Do you love white people?
I love all people categorically.
How about
unless
white?
let me specify, unless I have a reason not to love a particular person, my fundamental disposition is to love all people.
Do you love white people?
I love all people.
Do you support Black Lives Matter?
Yes.
Even though they're a bunch of fat, black, radical lesbians who hate God, who hate the nuclear family, who are trained to be Marxists, they hate the unborn children. They want to turn America into a socialist society. Everything about them is evil. As a reverend, you still support them?
I dare not make those sort of globalistic comparisons or comments about people.
They say it about themselves.
I dare not make
But
those
that's
sort
what
of
they say about
globalistic
themselves.
categorizations about individuals.
They say
What
it
I
about
do know is that
themselves.
I support a movement. I recognize fundamentally that all lives matter. But as a result of what happened to Breonna Taylor, and as a result
But
of how
these Black Lives
Kentucky's
Matter
Attorney
people are
General
evil.
undermined her character, I recognize that people must speak out and speak truth to power in the fact that Black lives must matter too.
So it
If
doesn't
all
matter
lives
that
matter,
they
if
are
there's a
fat.
such thing as value in human life, Black lives must matter too.
So it doesn't matter to you as a reverend that they are fat, radical black lesbians.
We are all God's children, brother. I profoundly disagree with some of the things you said, but I'm not going to turn around and talk about you when
But
we finish this interview.
we're not all God's children. Only those who have been born again are God's children. God created all, but all are not his children. Some belong to Satan.